When we think of elite quarterbacks, we think of players like Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and Russell Wilson. However, what may come to a surprise to a lot of people is none of these guys finished in the top 5 in passing yards in 2019. While Patrick did miss a few games, he ultimately did not finish in the top 5. There was only one 5,000 passing yard quarterback in 2019, and it was of all players Jameis Winston. There was only 400 yards separating spots 10 through 16 in 2019, and it will be very tight again in 2020, there's no doubt about it. That brings us to the topic of today's video, is predicting the top 10 players in passing yards in 2020. But before we get started, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, as all support is very much appreciated. Now let's begin. We start today's video in Atlanta with Falcons quarterback Matt Ryan. Matt has thrown for over 4,000 yards in every year since 2011, and there's no reason he can't do it again in 2020. Over the past 7 seasons, he has averaged 4,600 yards per year and has been consistently in the top 10 statistically among his position. Very quietly, he has accumulated good numbers over the years, and when he retires, he probably will have over 400 touchdown passes and over 60 to 65,000 passing yards. Matt finished 5th in yards in 2019 while missing a game, 3rd in 2018, 6th in 2017, 2nd in his MVP year in 2016, and 5th in 2015. He is consistently in the top 10 for passing yards, and with Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley, not to mention Hayden Hurst, back for another year, there's no reason to think he can't do it again. He will have to try and keep up with Brees and Brady when those teams play, and because of how good Ryan is year in and year out, I would be absolutely shocked if he isn't in the top 10 in passing yards in 2020. Now we head to the Motor City to discuss Lions quarterback Matt Stafford. Before he got injured in 2019, Stafford was on pace for nearly 5,000 yards and 38 passing touchdowns. He has, like Matt Ryan, put together a very solid career. He has thrown for over 4,000 yards 7 times in his career, last coming back in 2017. Fortunately for Stafford and Lions fans, I think he gets back there in 2020 and finishes in the top 10 in passing yards this year. He undoubtedly would have done that last year, and he still has considerable weapons to throw to in players like Kenny Golladay, Marvin Jones, and second-year tight end TJ Hawkinson. Golladay and Jones combined for nearly 2,000 yards last season, with quarterback David Blau throwing them the football for quite some time, and with their guy and Stafford back, they could each go for 1,000, and Stafford should finish in the top 10 this year. Now we go to Dallas to talk about why Dak Prescott will be a part of today's video. He finished 2nd in passing yards in 2019 with over 4,900 and will have all of his weapons back with the exception of Randall Cobb and Jason Witten. That's okay though, because they improved at both of those positions with the addition of first-round pick CeeDee Lamb and the emergence of tight end Blake Jarwin. And to be clear, Jarwin in 2020 could be better than Witten was in 2019, certainly not as a whole career to be clear. But the Cowboys return 1,000-yard wide receivers in Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup, and those players should be good again in 2020, as there is no reason to suggest why they won't be. Dak is almost a shoo-in for this list because of that, and the Cowboys should be competing for a division title in 2020 as well. There's no reason to think Dak can't throw for 4,500 yards and 30 touchdowns in that offense, and that without a doubt would get him in the top 10, and ultimately, today's video. Staying in the same division as we go to Philly for the next player in Carson Wentz. Carson managed to be in the top 10 last year despite injury after injury on the Eagles roster. He will have first-round wide receiver Jalen Reagor on his team now, and with both tight ends in Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert, and the expected emergence of second-year running back Miles Sanders, Carson should easily get to 4,000 again and be in the top 10 in passing yards for the second consecutive year. His division's secondary is rather weak now with the departure of Byron Jones, and the Eagles should look to exploit that 6 times this year, and Carson is next in turn to put up some gaudy numbers just like he did in 2017. I don't doubt 4,500 yards from him this year, and the Eagles should get a playoff berth as well. Carson had 5 300-yard games in 2019, and he should have no problem getting at least that in 2020, and it should be a fun year to be an Eagles fan. From Philly to Bourbon Street, we discuss the next player, which of course is Drew Brees. Drew finished 8th in yards per game in 2019, and with missing 5 games, he obviously didn't finish anywhere close to the top 10 in yards last year. But with Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara coming back, and the acquisition of Emmanuel Sanders, there is no reason Drew can't get back in the top 10 in 2020. Brees had over 4,000 yards for 12 consecutive seasons, and although his career is winding down, he is still a great player in the NFL. He has made the Pro Bowl every year but just once since 2008, is the only player to throw for 5,000 yards 4 times, and is a first ballot Hall of Famer. He has the weapons around him, and Drew undoubtedly has the talent to make it happen and to be back in the top 10 in passing yards this year. Now we go to the Pacific Northwest for Russell Wilson. Russ was an MVP candidate for a lot of 2019 before Lamar completely took over. He finished 6th in passing yards in 2019 and led the Seahawks to an 11-5 record and a playoff win over Philadelphia in the wild card round. Russ is a very good talent, and he should have another good year in 2020. He has thrown for over 30 touchdowns in each of the last 3 years and over 4,000 in 3 of the last 5. Wide receiver DK Metcalf should also break out and have over 1,000 yards and be a huge contributor for the team. Hopefully tight end Will Dissly can stay healthy and contribute as well for a full year. Russ is a great quarterback and should finish in the top 10 in passing yards again. Now if you're watching this, you had to know Patrick Mahomes was going to be on this list. Mahomes missed 2 games in 2019 and virtually all of a third, and still finished in the top 10 in passing yards. He is without a doubt the best player in football heading into the season. In the past 24 months, he has an MVP, a 5,000-yard 50-touchdown season, and a Super Bowl MVP to his name. A lot of times, the NFL analysts talk about players being system players, or being in a place where their talent is maximized, and Pat is certainly in one of those situations. His talent along with Andy Reid's offense together fit like a glove, and we have all seen what they can do. Combine that with weapons on the field like Tyreek Hill, who always has to be accounted for because of his speed, an all-pro tight end and Travis Kelce, and other weapons like McCole Hardman, Damian Williams, and now Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and this is the perfect recipe for another great year from Mahomes. If he plays all 16 games and isn't top 10 in every passing category, consider me shocked. He is talked about in such high regard for a reason, and it's because he is that good. Next, we go to Arizona to discuss what a lot of people think is the next great quarterback in line in Kyler Murray. Kyler had a very solid rookie season last year, in which he accumulated over 4,200 total yards and finished 15th in passing yards. The Cardinals did exactly what a franchise should do when building around a young quarterback, in giving him a true number 1 wide receiver in DeAndre Hopkins. Could the Cardinals be this year's version of the Browns, where everyone hyped up the second-year quarterback and receiver only to disappoint? Yes, but I don't think so, and I think that Kyler will click with DeAndre almost immediately, and that he will have a very good season statistically, DeAndre too for that matter. Kyler had 5 games above 300 yards passing in 2019, but he also had 5 games below 200 yards passing in 2019. One of his goals will be to be more consistent in 2020, and he is in a good position to achieve that, with weapons like Christian Kirk, Andy Isabella, and of course, all-reliable Larry Fitzgerald. Kyler is in a perfect position to become a Pro Bowler for the first time in his career, and for the sake of this video, finish in the top 10 in passing yards. Next, we go to Los Angeles for Rams quarterback Jared Goff. In 2019, this may sound surprising, but Goff finished with more yards than everyone in the NFL but Jameis Winston and Dak Prescott. With yards, sometimes it boils down to what fantasy players call garbage time stats, and while I don't think the Rams are that atrocious of a team for him to accumulate that much garbage time stats, I do think they'll be down a lot, and for them to win, it will require Goff to win games and essentially play hero ball. Yes, they added Cam Akers, the running back, but I think it's Goff's show, and because of this, he will rack up a lot of yards. He has thrown for over 4,600 yards in back-to-back years very quietly, and maybe the new generation's Matt Ryan or even Matt Stafford, meaning he puts up great yardage numbers every year. He has receivers Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp on his team, along with tight end Tyler Higbee. He led the league in attempts last year and will be close to that top in that statistic again, and because of that, he should finish in the top 10 in yards this year. For the final quarterback in today's video, it's none other than the GOAT in Tom Brady. Tom in 2019, despite receiving some criticism towards the end of his Patriots tenure for regressing, he did finish in the top 10 in passing yards last year. He finished 7th while throwing to players like a 33-year-old Julian Edelman, Philip Dorsett, Mohamed Sanu, and N'Keal Harry. He is going from a horrendous receiving core to 2 of the best receivers the NFL has to offer in Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. While I do think Brady physically regresses in 2020, he will still be able to get those guys the ball. There are very good receivers, and Brady is a very good quarterback. He will also play in a division where points are going to be needed to keep up with the other teams, so it's not out of the question to think the NFC South could have 3 players with 4,500 yards apiece. Now, for the players who did not make today's video, that include Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson, Ben Roethlisberger, and multiple others, let me address this now. The Ravens want to run as much as they can, and Lamar finished 22nd in passing yards in 2019 despite winning the MVP. He probably won't ever be a huge yardage guy, and that's okay, because he's a league MVP and 19-3 as a starter. Deshaun Watson lost one of the best receivers in the league, and I truly think the Texans are in for a long year. He could very well end up in the top 10 because of how much they'll lean on him, but I truly feel sorry for him with how his team is being handled. Ben Roethlisberger is coming off of a major surgery, and at his age, combined with no Antonio Brown this year like he's had in years past, really scares me. That's why I left him off this list. And finally, Aaron Rodgers. I think the Packers, as he ages, want to run the ball more, as Aaron Jones led the league in touchdowns last year, and they spent a second-round pick on A.J. Dillon. He will show flashes of the player he once was, but don't expect him to put up any insane numbers going forward either. And with that being said, that's all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you're still watching, I appreciate the time out of your day. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a great day.